Welcome to Baseball Biz on Deck. I am Mark Corbett, your host, and with me, of course, is Mr. Mat Germain. Welcome back, Matt. How the heck you doing, brother?
I'm a little warmer now that summer is in its midst and the dog days are ending. But other than that, I think I got a little bit too much sun a few times, so I'm happy for the summer that I got. Mark, how about you?
I am just as pleased as can be. It was great that we got a little bit of traveling, and that was some fun with family and friends, and that's always great. It's been interesting watching the different baseball games, everything from the women's stage in Rockford with the international games there, the little leagues. We can talk about that in a little while. And it's just insane, all the different kind of baseball that's been going on. But good times, my friend, good times. And raise up, raise up, raise up. Okay, we'll definitely got to address that. I don't know about you. I mean, I was feeling so high and mighty after 9 games on the road and coming home with series after series after series, sweep, sweep, sweep. And then coming home and not so shiny bright as it was on the road, and then getting on the road again. We're still kind of I guess we got through 500 on the road this last trip, but
Right.
So have you been surprised with anything we've seen?
No, we knew that the competition was going to get stiffer, and the Rays against AL East can be hit and miss sometimes in certain series. So, when you're running into teams that are still vying for that playoff spot and are making that push, they're really hungry and pushing all the buttons to try to get there. So the Jays and the Orioles and even the Tigers, like they were still sort of in the hunt, and they still are. So you're running into a lot of talent that can push back. So if you're not on top of your game and doing your best, the Rays have some injuries that are key to their roster. Victor Mesa Jr. was a really important kind of catalyst. His arm in right field, his defense, and what he was starting to bring at the plate, and the energy and the speed. And without him in the outfield, you could feel it. There was a lack of something. So hopefully he can come back soon. But I do know that Jacob Melton and Jake Fraley are both on rehab assignments in Durham. And Jacob Melton just hit a home run at 114 miles per hour exit velocity. So he's obviously got his timing down. And he was doing great before the injury. So I would love to see him get a shot if Victor Mesa is going to be out for a little bit longer, just to give a boost to the Rays lineup. I think it's really important. And that's assuming Jake Fraley was on a 60-day IL. I don't know how serious the injury was and how long of a rehab he's going to get, but it might take him a little bit more time to get his legs under him.
As long as we're talking about what's going on in the lower levels, you were discussing on Blue Sky, I think earlier today, about a couple of players who moved up to Triple-A. You want to talk about them?
Yeah, well, I monitor those things so closely, but in this case, it's because of the tools, right? When you're looking in the Rays system and you're like, okay, who has the best power tool and who has the best hit tool? Well, they just promoted both of them to Triple-A. So that means they're on the doorstep of the show. Xavier Isaac, who last year had brain surgery, was promoted to Triple-A, and he'll be taking over first base / DH duties. And his power has been rated as high as 70 to 80, even in some cases, as an 80 tool. And that's the potential of it. It might not be an 80 now, but it has 80 potential in the future. Gotcha. For anybody that doesn't know, he's just 22 years old. He was a first-round pick of the Rays, and he's definitely one of those guys you love to pull for because he just has an infectious personality. In the NAA, he had hit 24 home runs and had a 400 on-base percentage. So he was definitely getting on base. And what I noticed with him is that his patience was excellent, but they weren't giving him much to hit because they recognize the beast-style power he has. The other guy that got promoted is Caden Bodine. Now, the Rays got him in the trade with the Orioles for Shane Baz. And I'm telling you, Mark, there's a serious helium to this guy because, when they got him at first, everybody was like, yeah, they like this guy. They like Slater. But he's passed through 4 levels this year, Mark. He started in A-ball. He went to A+, he went to AA, and now he's in Triple-A. Jeez. I'm telling you, the Rays rarely do this. The last time I remember them coming close was Wander Franco, but he was so young that they held him back a little bit, and he ended up finishing the year in Double-A. But they just don't do that. Like that, this is a breaking new boundaries basically for them. Part of it is because Nathan Flewelling was in the same level, so they pushed Caden Bodine up to Double-A a little bit earlier than he might have.
Yeah.
But he did so well once he got there that it was just like, move him up to Triple-A and let's see what he can do. And he's looking great. I think there's I'm not saying this year he's going to arrive, but if you told me that he would start behind the plate for the Rays in next year and take over from Nick Fortes, I would not be surprised. More likely is that he gets a June call up or something like that. But you never know with catching position and injuries and everything else. So he's just one of those guys where if you trust the fact that he can stay behind the plate, he definitely will be, maybe the highest level hitting catcher potential.
Right.
Like he could exceed what Liam Hicks does at the plate, just because the hit tool is to Chandler Simpson's standard, but with power. So if he's making contact like Chandler and he's got power and he's knocking the ball over the field and he has a great approach at the plate, that's a really interesting player, Mark.
Wow.
And I love to see that in Triple-A because it means he's right about to arrive.
Man, it's something I always wonder too. It seems like in postseason, occasionally they'll pull somebody up, Matt, and it would be interesting to see if during this postseason if Bodine actually makes it up here. I know it sounds very premature, but my gosh, him being in Triple-A seems very premature too for the usual path of a young player.
I don't know if they would want to break him like that because you're seeing the best pitching in MLB right away. You'd be forced to handle the staff. I think having him go through a spring training where he learns the whole staff and they learn him and they kind of get on the same, that would make a lot more sense for a catcher. But to your point, Freddie Peralta, how great did he look today?
My gosh. I got to tell you, earlier when he first came on, I had some questions as to whether or not he was going to be able to do it. But today, watching him, and I don't know, it was like 11 or 12 batters up, and bam, 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 bam. Each one of them were out either from a ground out, a strikeout, or whatever. But he kept it down. I did not check the time of today's game, but it had to be sharp because there wasn't much fooling around with the game today.
Yeah, and the cool thing is that they had somebody on. I didn't even catch who it was because I was working, but I could hear the interview, and he was breaking down why Freddie was doing so great now with the Rays and why things were clicking. And he's always been known as Freddie Fastball, right? So that was his go-to pitch.
Yeah, it's Liam Hicks.
Yeah, that was leading. There you go. So that's who was breaking him down, and what the Rays have done with Freddie is increased his changeup usage, and they've done that with other players as well. And what that does, it builds confidence for Freddie to know that when he does use his fastball, it is quote unquote more vulnerable because it's 1 mile an hour less, or he misses the location a little bit. It's not going to be feasted as much because the players are still trying to get the timing right because of the changeup and fastball velocity changes. So he threw it 32% today. So that's a lot. That means a third of his pitches were changeups. 47% were fastballs, and he had 15% curves, a couple of sweepers. He ended up with 10 swings and misses, and he looked sharp. He just looked like he was starting to feel it. He was like, yeah, I understand now. I've got this. Yeah, I'm going. And the Tigers lineup is not one that you can sleep on, right? Like, and they hit the ball hard a few times, but right at players. So the Rays were, doing their job defensively. But I really like his moxie. I like his mojo. I like the personality mix with the Rays. And I'm really happy they went out and acquired him.
See, now, did he play with the Brewers or the Tigers? I'm trying to remember. I get him. The Brewers. Yeah. And because I was wondering if it was him. Do we face the Brewers?
No.
Again? I didn't think. I thought I was reading somewhere where he would be facing a former team with us. But
it's possible. I can tell you, looking through this, it's the Mets. So we're seeing the Mets this weekend.
That's it. Because that's where he stopped for 5 minutes before he came here. Yeah,
That's
all
right.
right. That's what it was. Okay, so that will be interesting. It's not like he has a long history with them, but he had a partial year, I think, with them, if
Mhm.
that. So I don't know. Like I said, I'm really impressed with him. I was hesitant and my expectations were kind of low. I thought,
Mhm.
oh my gosh, why are we getting this guy? Yeah, when we're down at the Tampa Baseball Museum, and sometimes I have folks come in and tell me, well, I don't know why they brought this fellow on. And it's funny because two of the names they gave me was early on was Matt's and who is our ace? Martinez, Nick Martinez.
Nick Martinez, yeah.
Nick Martinez. So Nick Martinez has been nothing but great. He just astounding. And
Hmm.
I mean, a great leader too. So I'm really so those naysayers out there early on, all these changes, they're terrible, blah, blah, blah. And time will tell always. And one thing people should know is the Rays will not hang still for commonality. I should say something just staying the same. They're going to look for something that's going to put points up on the board, and are in Martinez's case actually keep any points from going up on the board. So that was a great call. But the other fella who we just brought on, Jorge Mateo,
Yep.
and I didn't realize he's also from the Dominican Republic. So he and Junior might be able to have a little bit of communication there, a little more too, because I believe Mateo's a little older. I'm not sure. I can't remember his age, but
Yes.
I
It's
think he
definitely.
could be maybe a bit of a mentor too for Cabanero. So I'm wondering if that's one of the reasons they brought him in.
It could be, but I think there's two sides to it all. Like when you have a utility player, which is essentially the role that Jorge Mateo is taking on, you want him to be versatile and be able to move around the diamond and be sound defensively. So Mateo gives you that. He's not stellar. He's not, a gold glove guy at all the positions, but he can move around and give, Cash some options. But another thing is you want him to be high energy with good speed, run the base as well, and not be frustrated by being not playing as much, right?
Right.
And if like sometimes let's say they were using Carson Williams, you can start to feel some anxiety if he's not getting on the field a lot. He's like, then he has a hard time getting, regular at bats. He gets that puts more pressure on the bat, and then it could just kind of snowballs, right? Where a veteran like Jorge Mateo, if he gets 3 at-bats in 2 games and they're all spread out, he's not going to complain. He's going to understand his role. He's got a professional routine, and he's able to go through it. So I think the Rays were right to bring somebody like that in. Whether or not he sticks around long term all the way through the playoffs, we'll see. But he's definitely, doing some good things, bringing in a lot of energy, and we'll see if the bat can start producing. He had really good times in Baltimore, like on occasion, to the point where you were like, "Wow, this guy is blossoming into something," and then it kind of came back. And so I wonder if he can rekindle that over time.
So looking across the Rays right now, it looks pretty good as far as having a good number of healthy pitchers, all in all. There's still some folks that are kind of on the edge. If we look at catching as far as Liam Hicks has been fantastic. So I'm
Mhm.
really pleased with him. And if we look at the outfield, it's so funny the other day. I said, Where's Josh Lowe? That's been a while, hasn't it? But there you look out in the outfield now, and as you pointed out, Victor Mesa Jr. is out for a while.
Mhm.
But I can't wait to see him come back. So we've got, geez, who else we got? So we got Chandler Simpson in the outfield. We got Cedric Mullins, and then we got Johnny DeLuca out there.
Yes,
Yeah,
and Ryan Vilade. Yeah.
thank you.
So those are the guys that are doing the work now. Again, I don't know like how much Cash trusts DeLuca and Vilade against each side of the pitchings kind of thing. But I think that's the balance that you want is to be able to field the right guys in the right place. Obviously, Chandler can play every day because he can hit pretty much anything or bunt or ground through whatever. But I think the interesting thing that I noticed, Mark, is the Rays have 2 hitters within the top 20 when it comes to contact abilities on base abilities, that kind of stuff, and Chandler Simpson and Yandy Diaz.
Yep.
Now, rarely do you get a team with two of those spread out in the lineup. They're never usually back to back. And there's a good reason for that, right? It keeps the pressure on the pitchers and the defense to try to figure out how they're going to get these guys out. And the power in between, like you mentioned, Hicks, with Hicks, Aranda, and Caminero in between, you kind of have this good dynamic. Now, what Victor Mesa Jr. brought was another piece that did have power, did have speed, continued to add that pressure. DeLuca has moments where he does that. Velade has great stats when it comes to left-handed pitching. Right-handed pitching is a little bit different. So you wish that the entire league was left-handed, but they just aren't, you know? So yeah, that's the thing that I wonder. If you brought in somebody like Jacob Melton instead, he's able to then feast on right-handed pitching, which you're going to see 80% of the time. So in my opinion, eventually, assuming Jake Fraley and everybody else comes back, it's possible you'll see both Jake Fraley and Jacob Melton in the outfield and see a changeover. Like Richie Palacios is another one that gets mixed in. Yeah. But it's tough. There's some position, which I like. It's competition, and we're in the key moments of the year, and we're going to face some tough opponents, Mark.
Looking at the game yesterday, meaning Tuesday, I saw some flubs. Saw some errors out there, some dropping of the ball, not looking on where should I send the ball to. And, as a professional ball player, we don't expect that to happen, but it did. And I love Richie Palacios, but it seemed like he was having some difficulty the other day. It's today, though, he made some really great plays to over there by, was it second base today? Second base, and he was doing real well over there. But I wonder how long they'll keep him up if they bring some of those other guys back.
Right. When I talk about facing the Yankees, the Dodgers, the Brewers, you're going to want your lineup chugging because you can't rely on one power bat, one key hit. Yeah. And I know Richie could perform. Like he can do the job really well. So can Ryan Velade against left-handed pitching, et cetera. So I haven't done the homework in terms of if the Rays face this team in the playoffs, how many left-hand pitchers do they have? So if they don't have many, then maybe Ryan Velade doesn't go in, and you bring in somebody like Jake Fraley or Jacob Melton, and they get the cut. And so there'll be a lot of mixing and matching. We've seen that in the past with the Rays where they end up not bringing somebody onto the roster, and we're just like, what? How can this guy not be part of it? But there's a game plan to the other team, right? So I don't know, but to me, if you are going to consider bringing Jacob Melton in the playoffs, you kind of want to get him into the show, maybe as a September call-up and make sure that he gets the playing time to kind of feel comfortable at the plate by the time the playoffs come around.
With the little stretch there of not having so many great wins in a row last week, how much pressure is being put on Cash, who has a long-term career with the Rays, and say for 1 week, is he going to be judged harshly for maybe 1 week with a couple of questionable putting people in or taking people out too early? And
he made some questionable calls. Yeah. I will say there's one game in particular where I was sitting there going, I don't know. This one's on Cash. So he's got one, but I think he got frustrated by that and eventually got thrown out of the game, later on in the week. So he's feeling the pressure for sure. And I think it's more of a personal thing. Like he wants to finally push it through so that all those questions from the last time they were in the World Series go away permanently. Because until he doesn't do that Blake Snell pull, until he follows it through to the end and actually has a team won the World Series, he's always going to have that question mark. All those accolades of lasting in the league this long, of managing the Rays that long, of being so many wins, he doesn't care. Doesn't care. So when you're talking about getting, first over in the division or in the league so that you have home field advantage through the playoffs, he's focused on that and he wants that badly. So, there's a lot of pressure on him knowing the schedule that's coming up now, which is just it's really punishing, Mark, overall. Like I sent it out on Blue Sky, and out of the 7 out of the 9 next series the Rays have are against either a playoff team or one of the teams that are first or second in their division.
Yeah.
So 7 out of 9 series,
Mhm.
Mark. That is just the gauntlet. And so the Rays are essentially in playoff mode now. They're facing playoff teams all the way through the end, except for 2 series.
And who are those
So
two?
the 2 series that they're not in are still not easy. You've got the Mets
Yeah.
and you've got the Athletics. The Rays should be able to handle. Like honestly, that should be one that like the series they win at least. But it's still, I don't know. I look at all the teams they're facing, Mark. They're going to be facing the Padres, the Texas Rangers, the Braves, the Astros, the Red Sox, the Yankees, and the Phillies to end it. You're facing the league's best pitching right before the playoffs. You're going to be tuned up. So, in a way, if the Rays are able to manage all the way through that to, play 500 between now and the end of the year
Yeah.
and do well against the Phillies, they'll go in on a high because they'll already be at that speed, right? Whereas some teams that have an easier schedule might be less tuned up and have a hard time.
Well, I'm looking forward to this postseason. I mean, it's hard to believe it's like 30 games left this season. I mean, my gosh, it's 132 games underneath the belt already. It doesn't look like there's going to be. I'm sorry, there's not going to be 100 wins this year, but it's going to be
And
good.
like we said last, I can't remember when we talked about this, but this might be the last 162 game season we ever had.
Yeah.
So it might. I'm not saying we're going to have more, but we could have less.
Well, you think about it, it was just a few years back we changed the postseason and included more games these players have to play in postseason. So, and you and I have talked before about the health of pitchers' arms and the players overall, that it couldn't hurt to scale it back. And I don't know that that's going to happen. I was talking with somebody the other day about the CBA, and they're like, yeah, maybe not. This person's kind of an informed person, but they were saying, no, Mark, I don't think we're going to have it beginning of a season day one. There
But I
is going
do
to be a
want.
lockout.
I want to say one thing though, because the thing about the health of the pitchers that you just mentioned,
Yeah,
I haven't heard many Rays pitching injuries this year. Knock on wood. But the whole thing about them using the changeup as the pitch that they are leaning on more and more and more,
yeah,
could that be the key ingredient? Well, haven't done the homework in terms of the changeup heavy pitchers, the
yeah.
ones that don't use splitters, because splitter doesn't count. That's a different thing. But if you're using like a regular changeup, are your injuries less? Because I'm not saying that you're resting your arm, but you're demanding a little bit less from your arm for, let's say, a third of the game today. Freddie Peralta, for a third of the game, he was demanding a lot less from his arm. Is that enough to prevent some injury? So I'm curious about that because the Rays historically, Mark, have had guys lined up, with the surgeons pretty regularly.
Yeah.
And it's been a little while now since Drew Rasmussen and Shane McClanahan came back. I don't think there's anybody new that's gone over. We just had Manuel Rodriguez return from injury, which is great to see. He wasn't, he looked pretty good. But I think it's interesting because Manuel Rodriguez obviously doesn't throw a significant amount of changeups, right? And so you get into that kind of frame of mind. But I wonder if the rest of the league will pick up on that and start using that as something to kind of dig into and say, well, maybe we can now push our pitchers a little bit longer in the game, and as long as they're throwing a good portion of their pitches as changeups and not demanding as much from their arms.
Were you surprised? I know I was a little bit today. What they pulled Peralta after 6 innings. Did you think they gave him 7 or 8?
No, you want him to go out on a high note. I mean, he was so dominant to that point. I think if they had done it before the sixth, like if it was the fifth and 1 out or fifth and 2 outs, that would have been different. But where he had completed the inning, I was like, yeah, that's fine. You let him go in because it's the first time you really looked sharp beginning to end without any big hiccups. You want him to have that positive to build on the next time. And then it's just going to be, help him have a little bit more in the tank the next time through. The Rays, like we said, have a gauntlet coming through. So he needs to be sharp for those starts and into the playoffs. I'm just happy for him that he's go to a contending team after you've been on a down and out team for a while. You want to be one of those pieces that chips in, right? And so it adds some pressure on him. And I'm glad he's coming through, because the Rays have had it before where they've traded for key pieces before the playoffs and they kind of become duds, right? Like they're not really as explosive as the Rays had hoped. So, I don't have Nelson Cruz would be a good example, but yeah, I'm happy for him, and I hope that he continues to build on that. And eventually, I'm sure if it was a playoff game, Mark, and they pulled him out at this point after 6, then we would be having a different conversation.
Yeah, jeez. We're talking about baseball being everywhere, and I was visiting in Louisville last week and had to get an Uber driver. And I noticed on the back of his shirt, I see LS on his right shoulder. I looked a little closer and I saw O. I said, Pujols, right? And, the thing is, the game is everywhere. And you could tell he was just absolutely crazy about Pujols. And the game is everywhere. And you and I see that all the time when we talk about the Rays. There's the thing going on right now with the Little League World Series. And last year, I had the good fortune of going to Williamsport with my brother and watching some of those games, and it was just so exciting. And I know you've looked at there's 2 levels in the Little League World Series. They have basically what goes across the U.S., those have qualified. That's part of one bracket. And on the other side of the bracket, it's international. And Canada is one of the teams that made the international bracket, and they've been advancing. Can you tell me a little bit about Canada?
Yeah, they have what I would consider a sandlot team. Like they just have that feel to them where they're just out there to play and have fun, and you could almost pair the characters with the people in the movie, because they act almost identical to what those guys are. There's one husky guy who's a pitcher. He's just a lot of fun to watch. And there's another guy that's so small and skinny, you don't believe that he's even on the field. Like he just looks tiny, but he makes a wicked throw from shortstop. You're like, whoa, where did this come from? So they're a lot of fun to watch. They beat Australia, and that was a great game. It was a nail biter. That built up their confidence a little bit. Then they went through Panama, and Panama was supposed to be a really strong. They had a wicked pitcher on the mound. Right. It went to extras, and they ended up pulling it off. So now they had built a little bit more confidence between those teams, and they beat South Korea, which was just a beast of a team, and they weren't supposed to even contend against that team. So that was a huge game for that team to win. At that point, they're just playing for fun, and they showed up against Japan and ended up with a 7-3 loss, but they looked good. Like they didn't look all out of sorts. They gave Japan a tough ride. I'm really proud of the team this year. They did really well, and I'm sure that they're going to be going back with huge smiles, even though they didn't make it all the way through to the end. And that, that's really is what it's about, is, doing your best, leaving it all in the field, bringing the most you can out of your team. And Canada definitely did that this year.
Well, that's good to hear. You want to see them do as well as they can. You want them to enjoy it and get as far as they can. I mean, the good thing is, if the first game you didn't win, you have the opportunity to come back and play another one and move up. And that's what's happened on the USA side of this bracket. And with the team, I think to the southeast, but it's actually a team from Alabama. And I heard the name Rasmus. I said, that ding, 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 ding. I know that name from somewhere. Oh, yeah, there was a guy here, I don't know, 7 years ago, Kobe Rasmus. He stopped here between teams for about half a season. And he and his brother Corey both have major league history, but his brother Corey is managing that Alabama team. And Corey, I believe there's 2 Rasmus players on that team, and one of them's Kinley. And Kinley is a young woman who is just an amazing pitcher. She's amazing at bat, and she has just been wonderful. To give you an idea, some of her achievements this year, they are comparing them to Monet Davis from 10 years ago. That's how good she
Hmm.
is. So it's interesting to see that kind of work. And the other thing too about seeing Little League is you will see them where they place a pitcher maybe out into a shortstop position for a while and bring them in for part of it. So I enjoy watching that part of the game. And you're going to see some flub ups. There's no doubt about that in these games. And occasionally it's like, oh my gosh, don't throw it. Oh my gosh, they threw it and he came on in. Nobody saw the guy on third coming into home, but and those are the kind of those can be the fun moments as anything else. And you don't take it seriously, and you don't. There's no screaming or shouting. Just as a fan, it's fun to watch on the sidelines. Sometimes the mistakes, as much as sometimes the great performance. It's going to be interesting to see how this still plays out. I think it's this weekend when it's all said and done, but maybe I'll post a thing or two on Blue Sky about that. But Kenley Rasmus, my gosh, lady, keep it up. We look forward to seeing you at the WPBL or playing pro ball sometime in the future.
Absolutely. No, that sounds great. What you just said though gave me a thought, Mark, and I'm going to go out on a tangent a little bit here.
Uh-oh.
Let's say you had like a Shohei Ohtani, right? Or two. Let's say you have two of them. One of them plays first base, one of them plays third, and you have a pitcher on the mound. The pitcher has been trained to go to first base, you know? So he pitches 2 innings. Can he go to first base and have Shohei go and pitch 2 innings and then they swap again?
I've always wanted that. I've always thought that would be the coolest thing to be able to have a pitcher, keeping him out there in the field one way or another, and then bring him back as pitcher another part of the game. I've always thought that would be a neat thing to be able to do.
Right? Because if you're seeing a certain part of the lineup, maybe you want Shohei on the mound for that inning or two, and then but then you don't lose your spot in the lineup because you're all both still, So it's intriguing, and I think a team will try it at some point, especially like you even consider the catching position now, where they're essentially getting assistance from the calls that they're able to make and the challenges that they're making now. As long as you can block the ball and you can do some things, like you could theorize some people moving around a lot and learning the position. I remember Ford Proctor with the Rays ended up learning the catching position basically in Double-A right before he got to the show, and ended up catching with the Giants for a little bit just because he knew he needed versatility to make it to the show. So it's not impossible for players to add that down the road. But all that to say that the whole moving in and out, which I love about the Little League World Series, because Canada's done it lots where they bring somebody in. If they feel the pitcher doesn't have it or it's not the right moment, they'll bring the pitcher in, and then you're like, oh, what's going on? And people are shifting around, and it makes it fun, right? You're
Oh,
kind
yeah.
of, yeah. So, yeah, I enjoyed it.
I think you mentioned something about the ABS, and I was looking at something on Baseball Savant on that because I was curious. I see some of our when I see somebody go ahead and tap their helmet to tell the umpire, "Hey, I want to question this call." The ABS system, you got to do that quickly, and you'll hear the announcers quite often say, if it is the person who's at bat, the batter, that seems like a lot of times their request for the ABS is more emotional than it is really where it's at. The people who are batting have less success on it. See, I was looking at Baseball Savant overall on the challenges on the ABS. There's been a 54% overturns, and we're looking at, let's see, how many total? 8,537. This is a couple of days old. So since the beginning of the season, there's been over 8,537 attempts, and 4,577 of those have been
Isn't that
overturned.
striking, though? Isn't that like so? On the questionable calls, the ones that would be close, the umpires got it wrong more than half the time.
Yeah.
That is really telling, Mark. And this is why I believe that umpires shouldn't be asked to do this anymore. Like, I understand we don't want to do the ABS all the time for whatever reason, but I'm like, why not? We already have it. Like, it's just it's being proven to be accurate enough that and seamless enough that we don't need challenge systems anymore. Just call the balls and strikes. The umpire announces it as it goes in his earpiece, and that's it. Like, he doesn't have to guess. Like, we shouldn't be asking, 60. I've got my eyesight, Mark, is not what it used to be. And I would be considered one of the youngest umpires out there. So I'm just saying, like, at some point we got to call spades and just pull the band-aid off. And I'm glad we have the challenge system. I appreciate it. But especially as we head towards the playoffs, and there'd be a lot of key moments, and sometimes you just use the challenge on really close calls that you ended up losing on, and then suddenly you've got the whole rest of the game you're not allowed to challenge. I mean,
Yeah, because what happens is you'll see a stupid challenge. It's like, oh, come on, man, that was at least 2 inches in, but then after that, the next one went by. It's like, oh, the umpire really messed that one, but you've already used up all your challenges. I mean, yeah, I've had mixed feelings about that. I keep thinking, well, if we're going to do that, we should also do that. Did he swing or not? Now, that's not being measured by the ABS, and that's one.
Cash thrown out.
So we do that, and a part of the game I've never liked, and that's balks. Maybe we'll have the robots decide what's a balk too.
Take the rule out, Mark. It is the most useless rule ever. I don't care if they do the chicken dance before they throw to just get rid of the balk. I don't understand the rule. I mean, I'm sure it was valid at some point in time, but I've never seen it change a game. And so I'm like, just let them balk. I don't care. If they can trick. You remember the old ball in the mitts trick? That's legal.
Yeah.
That's like way worse than the balk. Right? So they're literally pulling a magic trick. I mean, the Rays are going to hire a magician to teach the players how to hide the ball.
Jeez.
Because they always want to get that edge, but they can't balk because that would be cheating. I find that funny.
Well, coming back to the Rays and looking at things that shouldn't be happening. Some people say there shouldn't be a new stadium coming to Tampa Bay, but that decision is going to rely on what the city of Tampa and Hillsborough County, those two separate entities, what they decide with participation in this whole deal of supporting the billionaires putting together the stadium. I mean, I want the stadium, man. I'll tell you right now, but I am conflicted, and it's got to make sense. I don't know. I would not want to be a councilman who said no right now. I think today in the Tampa Bay Times, there's an article and a video posting by Councilwoman, I think Lynn Hertak is her name. And she does the video and she qualifies herself. She shows all these images of herself as going to the Rays game and going ahead and electronically keeping a scorecard on every pitch and every at bat and showing that she's vested as a fan. And she says, and if we get this stadium, I could ride my bike there to do it. She goes, but I have responsibility to the taxpayers. And so she's a definite no for tomorrow. They need, 4 out of 6, I believe, to get this thing going. And we'll see what happens. So tomorrow morning, I think at 9 o'clock, a lot of people are gathering down at City Hall, and there's going to be a vote by the city. And then we'll see how that goes. And if that takes, then the next day, the county will have a vote and advance the program or not.
What I gather happened since the last offer that they had made is that they increased the portion that the Rays would take on, right? They are asking less from a lot of the county/city funding.
Yep.
And they have maintained the overages. So any cost overages on the construction, et cetera, are on the Rays. They're not on the city or taxpayers. But they're keeping the stadium naming rights, and they're keeping a lot of the ambiguity that you could call it in terms of what is locked in. So, for instance, the low-income housing, right? There's a lot of proposals and things like that, but nothing is hard and fast and locked in as you must finish this. It's more of a gray zone where there's ways of pulling in or out of the agreement. So I think that's going to be the place where a lot of the population is going to be, angry about, is if there's no guarantees on the Rays front of having to complete a lot of these things that they say are possible. Then there's going to be, I think that's what would reassure a lot of people, is if those things were locked in place, locked in stone,
Yep.
and the usage of the facility was kind of better defined, right? Like, is it the cities? Is it the counties? Is it the Rays? Is it who decides what happens when? Was it a 35-year non-move agreement as well in there?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
Or
if you're
forever home.
paying this much, it should be 50, right? 50, 100.
Forever home. Yeah. What's the life expectancy? That's my doctor said. What do you think? How long do you think you're going to live? What? No, but yes, a life expectancy of what this stadium would be. But yeah, I don't know, Matt. Like I said, I want it. I really do. I want it here, and I think that they've made some inroads, and there's been some concessions from the Rays. I don't know as much as many would like, but we'll see how this plays out in the next couple of days. Because I pretty much refuse to talk about it until now. Because
I need a prediction, though, Mark. I need you to
prediction.
predict the vote tomorrow will be what?
I think the vote tomorrow will not be the 4-6 that they're looking for. I think you're going to see a split. I think you're going to see a 3-3. And all the cheerleaders are out there pulling for it, and I kind of am too. But from what I see from Lynn Hertak and some others, I don't see it coming through tomorrow. We'll find out. I hope I'm wrong. And if that's the case, there'll be no reason to have a Friday meeting with the county.
Well, what do you think the Rays' reaction will be if it's a split?
I honestly don't know. I mean, at that point, Matt, we've got to look and say Orlando is crying for a team. And I can see that as a real thing. I don't think they're going to revisit St. Pete.
No.
I don't.
But the point is, does it die, or do the Rays get to make another revision?
I don't know. I mean, they have the opportunity to do that, but will they do that? I don't. That's the thing. And let me ask you another thing. As long as we're piling things on maybes and what ifs, what if there is a lockout next year?
Yeah.
I mean, well, you could say that's a year we're just having that new stadium built and we're not having to pay rent to the Trop. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. Right. I don't know. But I don't know that would impact anything as well. I don't know what the Rays would come back with, because the main concern I was hearing from Lynn Hertak's video, part of it I watched anyways, that she was stating that the numbers were inflated on what the returns would be, from what be invested in that area.
But do they really matter? Like, I don't mean that in facetious ways.
What do you mean?
I mean, like, nobody could ever predict, like, let's say right now you're talking about the Toronto Raptors, right?
Yeah.
Toronto Raptors in Toronto brought a whole country together and the city together, the six, and brought a championship with Kawhi Leonard to the city.
Right.
Nobody can put how much money was spent by fans and everybody else that went in there for the parade, for the watch parties, for the entire run through the playoffs. No economist can sit there and do, and I know this for a fact, Mark, they cannot tell you what the monetary value is for that playoff run. The Rays have been in playoff runs for how long now? Like they've had 5 of the last 8 years they've been in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Nobody can quantify what that does to a city, how much it binds it, the cultural binding that it does to the population in that city, the mental health that it improves because you have a game to watch that you care about every night. You can't put a monetary value on that. A lot of this nonsense about wanting to have dollars and cents make sense doesn't work. To me, the thing that matters most is, am I able to pay back the taxpayers who are lending money to these billionaires? Can I pay them back by a monetary amount, whether it's parking fees, whether it's naming rights, whether it's whatever, like to fill that coffer back up? That's what people will care about.
Yep.
If you tell me they're getting half of the naming rights or half of the parking fees and it's going to continue until the entire loan is paid up back, I don't think you'd have one person, maybe a couple of crazy people actually, Mark, but some people might argue because they're not for this or not for that. They wish the money went to something else, but it would be a weak argument, basically. But until politicians do that, they're vulnerable, basically, because they're being greedy and they're giving more money to greedy people. So you're right that it doesn't make sense, and you're right that morality comes into it, and it shouldn't. But the whole argument of, oh, I have to see the numbers and like this is going to be from this and this is going to come in from, it's all hogwash anyway. Nobody can actually make accurate predictions on those in the history of stadium builds, Mark.
Yeah.
It just, you can't apply monetary values directly because of this and this and this and this. It's just, maybe AI could get around to it at some point, but that would be like 20, 30 years from now.
Oh, yeah. We won't have any water left in the well after that. But after that computation.
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh. So I got to tell you, man, I was listening to a radio announcer today, WDAE, and, man, you talk about drinking the Kool-Aid, and he was putting it out there by the gallon at a time. But he was saying a couple of things that you said. It's almost like the mental health and the spirit of the community is not something that's measurable. And
right.
While he was very much an advocate for what would we give back, he was very good to mention the emotional impact, the emotional value of having that team there. So, well, let's hope they get it there.
Another angle, Mark.
Yeah.
How striking would that building be in Tampa? When you're looking at a picture of Tampa as a city, like, how striking, because it is an odd looking building. Like, it's got unique features. It's huge. It would be central to all pictures taken of Tampa from that day forward. Because really the other stadiums don't match up in terms of wow factor, right?
Yeah.
So you're essentially marketing your city with a venue that very few cities in the country can offer. Really? So to me, that is a city, building moment that makes you more of an international city than ever before. And we've talked about that. If you're going to host huge events, if you want the World Cup, if you want this, if you want that, this is how you get there, is you spend the money to attract things. Dubai is a good example. They've built countless venues for this kind of stuff to happen. If you build it, they will come. That's the way it goes.
Well, let's face it, Florida, we're a tourist state, a tourist city, and that's well known. But interesting too, because you're talking about the skyline, if you will. It's not so much skyline at that level, but it's going to be adjacent to the airport. So how many times you have tourists coming in, flying into Tampa Bay, and it's going to be prominent as they come in. It's going to be part of what people think of when they fly into Tampa. So, oh, there it is. That's the new stadium. The excitement with that. So.
Right. And there's another angle too. When the hurricane went through New Orleans, where did people go?
Well, they went to the stadium, man, and there were some bad stories about that too, man.
I know.
I don't know if I would pull that one out.
Make it better.
Yeah, there was some bad stories about that. But no, it's been a lot of fun. Hey, I do want to cover one more thing, and that is what's going on in the second part of the group stage for the Women's Baseball World Cup. And that's going on in Taiwan. It is interesting to see thus far some of the different, let's see what's happened. I think Japan really, really took off. Yeah, look at that. Against Great Britain. Now, the mercy rule came into play here because it was Japan 23 runs and Great Britain 0. Now, there's not, right now, if you're in there in the Asia Pacific, normally where you would have a 7-inning game while there is the mercy rule. The other reason is they've had so much trouble due to the rain, and therefore you're not going to have a 7-inning game simply because of having availability. And quite often these teams now are having to play 2 games in one day. So that's a challenge in itself. But Japan is always fields a great team. Let's see, who else was going on here? Oh, the Philippines. What was really cool about them, both they and Great Britain, this is their first year, the debutante year. Let's pull up.
I'm curious about the Philippines because I've never seen them in the baseball classic. That would be an interesting team to have added. Like they must. I know Chinese Taipei is one that often struggles to get a lot of good players. But have we had a Major League Baseball player from the Philippines?
I can't think of one. I mean, to be quite honest with you. But in regards to this women's World Cup, this is the first year that they've actually made it into it. So, but no, I can't think of a Philippine MLB player. Yeah. So we'll keep our eyes on that. That's coming. That's going on quite now. It's interesting too when you think of Chinese Taipei, and this is being held in Taiwan, and political implications with some of that too. The game. So yeah. I don't know. Well, what else you got, brother? Anything?
No. The only thing that I have is like I was watching the Durham game because the Rays were playing a little bit early with the Tigers and ended up taking them out 3-0. So I was kind of monitoring things, and then Nick Madrigal hit a home run, and I was just like, what? So wow. It's fun to watch them. Xavier Isaac ended up hitting a double. There's Schultens ended up throwing pretty well. So the Rays have some options down in the minors that are kind of interesting and fun to watch. Mesa Jr. was in the game as well. Oh, wow. We were just talking about him, and he hit a home run. Mm-hmm. So that's all to say that right now, if you look at their outfield, you had Mesa Jr., you had Jack Swinski, and you had Jake Fraley and Jacob Melton as options. So in the entire Durham Bulls lineup, you had 4 guys that were able to kind of be on any MLB team really at any point in time. So it's going to be interesting how that mix happens between the Rays and the Bulls over the rest of the bit, and who gets that September call-up. So everybody can go on Polymarket, make their bets, and make $5 or $6, trying to predict who the September call-up will be for every team in MLB.
All right, boys and girls, you heard it all here with Mr. Matt, and looking at what's happening with the Rays. The next 30 games coming up, sounds like with 7 of them are going to be good and 2 of them are going to be kind of, So we'll let you discern from yourself over the next few weeks as we head toward the postseason. But Matt, thanks you once again, my friend, for being here. It's always a blast being with you.
Yeah, it's always a great time, Mark. Thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
All righty. Well, thanks again, folks, and we look forward to talking with you again real soon.
Give it a little extra oomph today, Mark.
If you enjoyed this show, go ahead, like and subscribe to Baseball Biz on Deck. You may also find Baseball Biz on Deck on YouTube at iHeartApple, Spotify, Amazon Music, and at baseballbizondeck.com. Also, you can find Matt at matgermain.bskysocial. That's Matt at matgermain.